9 o'clock.
All rise. The Dallas County Commissioners Court is now in session for the November 2016 term. Honorable Judge Jenkins presiding. Please remain standing for the invocation.
And our invocation today, call the court to order. Quorum is present. All legal notices have been posted, and the court is duly called. Can I get a motion to open the court?
So moved.
All
Second.
right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, and we have a guest of Commissioner Daniels to give us our invocation.
Thank you, and good morning. I would like to introduce Aftab Siddiqui, who has been actively involved with community organizations for 2 decades. He's a vice chair of Muslim Community Center for Human Services, a nonprofit that provides charitable health and social services. He's a board member of the Dallas Peace and Justice Center and Texas Coalition to Abolish Death Penalty. Aftab is president of the South Asia Democracy Watch, an organization that works for human rights and democracy in South Asia. He is a board member of the Pakistan American Association of Texas. Why don't you come forward? You can do that. He is formerly president and currently board member of Muslim Democratic Caucus of Texas and is a member of the executive committee of the Tarrant County Democratic Party. He played a key role in organizing a ballot box barbecue and civil rights conferences for many years. Prior to migrating to the United States in 1993, Aftab played a key role in establishing the Amnesty International chapter in Pakistan. He was involved in campaigns against human rights violations and the death penalty. Aftab worked for 16 years at American Airlines until his retirement in 2012. He was deeply involved with the diversity initiative at work and was a member of the Diversity Advisory Council. He's currently working with the Dallas County Schools as a routing specialist. Before migrating to the United States also, Aftab worked in production management and taught as an assistant professor at the Institute of Business Administration, the University of Karachi. He's a Bachelor's of Science in Electrical Engineering, a Master's in Business Administration, and a Master's in Public Administration from UT Arlington. He's married to Yasmin and has 2 sons. Throughout his long public career, he has also been very committed in the religious arena. So if you would please lead us in prayer.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Peace be upon all of you. Assalamu alaikum, as we say. And it is an honor to be here in this august body. These are turbulent times for our nation. People are hopeful and yet fearful of our future and of each other. We as Americans have been through turbulent times before in our history. Many of us who believe in a higher deity reach up to their Creator for calm and comfort. Let me share with you some words of wisdom and inspiration from some wise men. President John F. Kennedy spoke to such a time in his inaugural address in 1961, and I quote, "Finally, whether you are citizens of America or of the world, ask of us the same high standards of strength and sacrifice that we shall ask of you. With a good conscience, our only sure reward, with history the final judge of our deeds, let us go forth to lead the land we love, asking His blessing and His help, but knowing that here on earth, God's work must truly be our own." End quote. And then words from another wise man, our current President Barack H. Obama, in his first inaugural in 2009, and I quote, "For us, they packed up their few worldly possessions and traveled across oceans in search of a new life. For us, they toiled in sweatshops and settled the West, endured the lash of the whip and plowed the hard earth. For us, they fought and died in places like Concord and Gettysburg, Normandy and Quezon. our founding fathers, faced with perils that we can scarcely imagine, drafted a charter to assure the rule of law and the rights of man, a charter expanded by the blood of generations. Those ideals still light the world, and we will not give them up for expedience sake. We are a nation of Christians and Muslims, Jews and Hindus, and non-believers. We are shaped by every language and culture, drawn from every end of this earth. And because we have tasted the bitter swill of civil war and segregation, and emerged from that dark chapter stronger and more united, we cannot help but believe that the old hatreds shall someday pass, that the lines of tribes shall soon dissolve, that as the world grows smaller, our common humanity shall reveal itself, and that America must play its role in ushering in a new era of peace. Let it be said by our children's children that when we were tested, we refused to let this journey end, that we did not turn back, nor did we falter, and with eyes fixed on the horizon and God's grace upon us, we carried forth that great gift of freedom and delivered it safely to future generations." End quote. May God help us all in building bridges among our communities, because that is what makes us great. God bless you all. Thank you.
Amen. Ashe.
Present our first is it on?
Yes.
Light's not on, but delegate sound out of that.
She can hear you.
I'll present our first, super duper, thank you. All right, I will present our first resolution today, first two actually. And the first will be a resolution on pancreatic cancer. Will Virginia Holloman come forward? Yeah, hi Virginia. To receive the next resolution.
Thank you.
Whereas in 2016, an estimated 53,070 people in the United States will be diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, one of the deadliest cancers, and 41,780 will die from the disease. And whereas pancreatic cancer surpassed breast cancer this year to become the third leading cause of cancer death in the United States, and it's projected to become the second leading cause by 2020. And whereas pancreatic cancer is the only major cancer with a 5-year relative survival rate in the single digits at just 8%, when symptoms of pancreatic cancer present themselves, it is generally in later stages, and 71% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first year of their diagnosis. Whereas approximately 2,650 deaths will occur in Texas in 2016, and there will be an estimated 418,451 new pancreatic cancer cases diagnosed worldwide in 2020. It is the seventh most common cause of cancer-related death in men and women across the world. Whereas the good health and well-being of the residents of Dallas County are enhanced as a direct result of increased awareness about pancreatic cancer and research into early detection, causes, and effective treatments. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Dallas County Commissioners Court does hereby designate November 17th as World Pancreatic Cancer Day in Dallas County, Texas, and encourages increased awareness and better research for advanced treatment and ultimately a cure. And I so move.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Virginia?
Very much. I really appreciate it, Judge. Almost 9 years ago, my identical twin died from this disease. And Betsy lived 14 months after diagnosis, which at the time was somewhat phenomenal. Now people are living sometimes 2 to 3 years when they've been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, as she was. And that's due to increased research and increased diagnosis a little bit earlier. Betsy's was spread all over her body when she was diagnosed. And I think having people aware of this disease really heightens their chances of surviving it, because if it's caught early enough, like any other cancer, if it's caught at stage 1 or less, it's a survivable disease. But as the resolution said, it's not generally diagnosed until it's too late. But I really appreciate it. Thursday's National Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Day. We're all wearing purple, so wear purple on Thursday and help us support this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
We'll send it to you. We'll send it to you.
It will be mailed to you, the resolution.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and our next resolution, I'll ask Lieutenant Christopher Young to come forward, please.
It's family.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And the resolution reads as follows. We got a good, and the rest of our team come forward. And any other veterans or veteran families, please feel free to come forward.
Or stand.
Yeah, or stand if that's, we want to recognize our vets. All right, now whereas in November of 1919, President Woodrow Wilson proclaimed the 11th of November as the first commemoration of Armistice Day with the following words. To us in America, the reflections of Armistice Day will be filled with solemn pride in the heroism of those who died in the country's service and with gratitude for the victory of World War I. And whereas on May 13th, 1938, Congress made the 11th day of November a legal holiday, which is celebrated at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, a day to be dedicated to the cause of world peace and to be thereafter celebrated and known as Armistice Day, which was later amended to strike out the word armistice and inserted in its place the word veterans. And whereas on this Veterans Day, November 11, 2016, it is fitting to also pay tribute to the families of those who have endured sacrifice, separation, anguish, and loneliness while their loved ones served with pride and honor. And whereas as we celebrate the families of those who proudly are a part of our unbroken chain of patriots for their unwavering devotion, as we renew our sacred vow to uphold our promise to our troops, our veterans, and their families, whereas our military would not be the greatest in the world without the strength and support of the loved ones who stand alongside our men and women in uniform. And whereas while our service members are fighting to secure the values we cherish and defend our homeland, their spouses keep their households running, sometimes through multiple deployments. And whereas spouses of those in the military are our fellow citizens and neighbors, in their services to their family and their country, they represent the true strength of America. And whereas we have a solemn obligation to support and care for the military of for the members of our military and their family until they conclude their service, we must always be there for our service members and their families, just as they are always there for us. Whereas our extraordinary military families, our heroes on the home front, stand alongside our patriots in uniform, and in their example we see the very best of our country's spirit. And whereas, let us thank them for their tremendous devotion to duty and for their unyielding sacrifice. Let us honor their resolve and patriotism and uphold our solemn responsibility to ensure the priorities of our nation and Dallas County reflect the priorities of our military families. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Dallas County Commissioners Court does hereby recognize the sacrifices of all the brave women and men who have served in America's armed forces and of their families, urging all citizens of Dallas County to honor military families through private actions and public service for the tremendous contributions they make in support of our service members, this nation, and Dallas County. And I so move.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Good morning, Judge,
James.
Commissioners, and members of the court. Let me first introduce the members of our Veteran Services team. To my right, my left and your right, Tracy Little, the Director of Veteran Services. We also have the newest member of our team, Melissa Castillo, and also Ms. Lavette Dominic, which is the new recipient of the Veterans County Service Officer of the Year Award, and we're very proud of that. With that being said, Judge, I just wanted to allude to one thing that you just said. Our nation celebrates Veterans Day on the 11th month, the 11th hour of the 11th day. The 11th day and the 11th hour. However, that's the formal recognition of Veterans Day. Veterans Day, however, should be celebrated every day of the year, 365 days a year, because the veterans are the ones that make this country run. We're the ones that the veterans are the ones that actually just help this country out. And just wanted to make sure that we celebrate. If you see a veteran, say hello to that veteran, thank that veteran for their services. With that being said, I'm just going to hand it over to Ms. Little.
Good morning, Judge Jenkins, Commissioners Court, and those in the audience. I'd like to take this opportunity to say that we appreciate the opportunity to be here and to receive this recognition. I'd also like to thank especially Commissioner Price for his words of acknowledgement last week on Veterans Day to us. We sincerely appreciated that. This morning we have some special guests, part of the Dallas County community, who will make presentations to you this morning as we recognize veterans, active military, Guard, and Reserve, and their families. Now I'd like to introduce Chaplain Jones, Chaplain Major Jones, who will give a special prayer in recognition of their families. Chaplain Jones is at the 301st Fighter Wing, Carswell Air Force Base, or Joint Reserve Base now, in Fort Worth. He serves as the Group Maintenance Chaplain. Group size is about 895 for the 301st Fighter Wing Maintenance Group. He has been a part of the military community for 32 years, 16 active and 16 reserve. He is also the administrator for New Dawn Health and Hospice, a business that both he and his wife own in DeSoto, Texas. So without further ado, Chaplain Jones, thank you.
May we bow to our omnipotent Father in heaven. We pause at this moment to invoke your presence among us and to acknowledge the holiness of this day. For we come to honor the men and women who protect our shores and skies, so that the Republic of these our United States will forever stand for freedom and democracy. Keep your hand upon them. Strengthen them with your virtue. For it is in this purpose that we come together in spiritual solidarity to pray this day. Amen.
Next, we will also recognize Second Lieutenant Christopher Young of Bravo Troop 1st of the 278th Armored Cavalry Regiment. He is also the Director of Sales and Military Affairs for K-Square Solutions, Inc. Also with him is his spouse, Roberta, and baby. We also have Sergeant Robert Hoyleman, but for now, Lieutenant Chris Young will give a presentation.
Good morning, everyone here. I'd like to start off with talking a little bit about why I joined, and then a little bit kind of to finish with the importance of the family element within the military. So when I'm asked by people, why did you join the military, there's millions of reasons, but I try and narrow it down to three. The first one is because of the horrors and the atrocities that happened on September 11th. I was 16 years old. I remember being in high school and being afraid for my life, not knowing what was going to happen with the country, knowing that we were having an attack on the homeland. I just remember being terrified and being in a sense or state of helplessness. But what was fantastic and what happened within our country is people came together. And our nation rallied together and created a military force and had so many volunteers that we didn't have to institute a draft. And that meant a lot to me, that other people were willing to go on my behalf and on the country's behalf to fight to keep us safe. The second reason that I would say is to serve this great nation. We live in the best country in the world. And if you don't agree with that, then you need to change your perspective really quick, because America's great. It's an honor for me to be able to serve each and every one of you here in this country and everyone who believes that they are an American and loves America and wants to live the American values. The third reason is because of my great-grandfather, Command Sergeant Major Robert Macon. He served in Vietnam, Korea, and World War II, was diagnosed with cancer, beat cancer, and then passed away at the age of 86 in 2014. An amazing man. He fought an infantry soldier in World War II, and then he reclassed to an an armor soldier, and fought in Korea and Vietnam. I remember having a conversation with my grandfather and saying, hey, you know, Grandpa, you fought in 3 wars, 3 of the most brutal, terrifying wars that this nation's ever seen. And now I'm in the military and I see my soldiers going through the horrors of PTS and traumatic brain injury. How were you able to go through 3 wars, to go through Bastogne, to go through the Battle of the Bulge, Vietnam, and come back and not be scarred? And he told me the biggest thing that he had was his family. He said the thing that people are losing nowadays is they're not relying on their families. They're trying to rely on themselves. And that's not the answer. In the military, we build families. I fight alongside with my brothers and sisters of this nation. And I build a family with them and build a familiar unit within our military unit. There's also organizations known as the FRG, the Family Readiness Groups, which the spouses usually come together and form to keep the families intact in times of war or deployments. These are very important for everybody because that family unit is what keeps us together. When we deploy as soldiers, our family is our brothers and sisters fighting next to us. They're the ones that keep us alive, that watch our backs, that keep us sane. But when we come home, our families are the ones that were here waiting for us, taking care of our children, taking care of us, taking care of our bills, and they are important. And what I say to you now, as anyone, as a court, as people, is look to your family. Come together, and when you need that strength, when you need that help, look back at your family. Strong families make strong people. So today I would like to dedicate this speech to my wife, my family, and to all the military families and the hardships that they take on. I'd like to dedicate it to the strength that they bring us when it's most important and when it's most desperately needed. Thank you all for today.
Thank you.
And so that concludes this session, and I'd like to just say thank you so much to all of you, and thank you to our special guests today. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to say that freedom, democracy are not free at all, that the price paid by members of the armed forces is not forgotten. And I like the reference made too that the connection between military and all Americans. I worked with the American Red Cross where we provided the emergency communications in order to keep people in contact. And that connection is something that to me is very personal. And so thank you very much for all that you've done. And it's just so much appreciated and will not be forgotten.
Thank you. All right. And next we'll have presentations. Is there a present?
No, not this week.
Commissioner Price, you keep one on the...
Mine is a continuum, running.
All right. All right, so then we will move to the consent agenda. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, next we have the bids. Is there a motion on the bids?
It's only, yeah, it's only the one, right?
Yeah, let's go.
Only the one. Okay. Second.
Okay, we know who made the motion. You got it down there? 'Cause it's-
Commissioner Brown.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have the court orders. We have court orders K1 through 46, pulling 11, 22, and 40 for a separate vote, and pulling 21, 23, 24, and 45 for a later date. Is there a motion on that?
Okay, can you repeat it? Can you repeat it, Judge? I mean,
You may go slower, sorry.
1 to 46, pulling 11, 22, and 24 for separate
No,
vote.
I'm sorry. 1 through 46, pulling 11, 22, and 40 for separate votes, and pulling 21, 23, 24, and 45 for a later date.
Who's pulling those?
I assume staff is.
Staff is pulling?
123, 24, and 45, yes. Those are staff requests.
Okay,
And the others are for separate votes.
okay, got it.
Gotcha.
Okay,
All right. So,
there's a motion.
okay. I believe Commissioner Price, you said he made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All right. So is there a discussion on these court orders before passing them?
Got it, okay. And Mr. Thompson, you're okay with 40, 41 and 42?
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, call the question.
Okay, the question has been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Court order.
Yeah, go ahead.
Court Order 11 is before us, a proposed strategy for county's unincorporated area. And then the primary purveyor and benefactor of that, I've had an opportunity to review it, and I know court members have reviewed with staff, and there is an amended proposition that is before the court, and I support that, and so move it.
Can staff for the record, go through the amendment that was incorporated into it, Mr. Lusberg? I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Just for the record.
Following the court's initial discussion on this on November 1st, staff met again the next day for about an hour and a half, and we went over everything that was talked about in regard to where should certain components be housed and located, also the staffing levels as well, and the reporting relationships. What is before you today is almost identical, but we've added some clarification language and we've made a few other changes. In regard to the engineer that have the primary responsibility of reviewing things like the subdivision regulations and having the day-to-day responsibility of floodplain management, the proposed grade level for that has been raised from a PE8 to a PE10 at the request or the recommendation of Public Works. We've also added clarification language trying to discern what the responsibilities were in relationship to floodplain management.
And explain why that was raised.
Correct. It's one of those interesting sort of things. The county is invited to the table for floodplain matters at a regional level because of the unincorporated area and our participation in the federal flood insurance program. So we have those rules. What has emerged over time, though, is because of the experience and the expertise that the county has acquired in this subject over the years, just as it has been for transportation, we've become a major player in the world of drainage and hydrology, and almost all of that is outside of the unincorporated area. Public Works has always fulfilled that role, has taken that role, and it's anticipated it will continue to do so. And we've added some language in there saying that they will still be the predominant player when it comes to regional floodplain management issues. The actual permitting and the implementation of our policy, which is limited by statute just to the unincorporated area, will be the purview of this new department. But it will not be operating in a vacuum. It will be consulting all the other participating departments that it's involved with, in this case Public Works, and then on other matters with the fire marshal and health and human services and other departments.
Right. Got it. Okay. So I moved it.
I second. I think that this is, a good proposal, a good understanding. If I understand all the partners are in agreement, but more importantly, a way to control what is starting to be uncontrollable. So it's a good first step, and I support it.
I've got
Thank you to staff and everybody involved.
a couple of comments. I want to second the thanks to staff and everyone for working on that, for working with members of the public that had concerns. I think their concerns have been addressed, and I see no one here to speak on this today, and I think that's a very good sign. I think a couple of concerns that I had, I'll just put for the record, that I think have been addressed. I question why create a whole new department that's so small and have another director. But Mr. Martin was able to prevail on me and convince me that it's important that we have a focus, a sole focus on this that a directorate can provide because of these matters that reach across many different departments, and it's important that will give us the focus that we need. I also was concerned about the engineer being on somewhat of an island, if you will, which is a legal phrase that we use about lawyers and malpractice, and I think those concerns have been addressed as well. So I too support this proposal and look forward to working with the new department.
And, well, more than anything, staff and we've worked on this for the last several years, and it's the growing demand. It's the growing potential liability that we have as a county, not intentionally, but because we are responsible for the unincorporated area, and there are a massive matters that continue to plague us, and I think this centralizes it in terms of logistics, operationally, for staff, so that not only the public has one place to come, but more than that, we can manage and get a report that is probably more concise in terms of what's going on in that area. I know Commissioner Daniels did ask, and it was provided that, again, about probably 96% of this is in an area that are governed. But, in terms of the kinds of things that the public doesn't think about, that we are responsible for, TCEQ, salvage yards, rodeos, I mean, not just the permitting in terms of structures and that management, but there's some other activity that's going on out there that we primarily are responsible for. So I appreciate the fact that staff recognized this and decided to concisely put it in one area.
I think one of the items that I am particularly aware of here, too, is that we're charged with orderly management of a wide variety of activities in Dallas County. And this particular item exemplified to just the nth degree how one area is shared by a number of entities. Therefore, the orderly management that this particular plan will provide just allows us to do our job, for one thing, and allows staff to work together and gives those paths, those processes. So a lot of details have been worked out, and staff has been very, very good at that. I mean, but we have to work together. That's the whole bottom line of it. We always have in the past, and we will continue, especially with assists from these types of plans. So thank you.
Any further comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And I also want to thank Legal Civil DA's office for all of their assistance in helping to frame the history, how we got here. And Public Works, long before this, we were charged, 10, 12 years ago with having to do the ETJs with the cities and try to clear it. This is even part of that whole orphan road piece. But I want to, John, thank you and your staff for that. And of course, Rick's been, riding that wagon all along. So I want to thank all the staff. Okay?
All right. Next up is 22. Is there a motion on number 22?
I'm going to move court orders 22.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No,
Right. Motion carries 3-1. Next is court order
24.
40.
There's a speaker on it. I'm going to move it so that we can get it up on the agenda for discussion.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. I've got some questions that I just want to address real fast, and then we'll get the...
Well,
Perhaps quicker.
I was purchasing and lay it out.
That's what I'm going to ask you.
Okay, go ahead.
So if you could, before we hear from the speaker, if you could lay this out, and I had sent you an email and you were kind enough to answer it, and I saw an even a more detailed answer yesterday. But as you're laying it out, could you lay out for us, because I still don't have an answer to that, what did the low bidder fail to price, and what's your, based on what you know, what would that have done to the bid? Because it looks like now we're talking about a difference of between the low bid and the second lowest bid, assuming the low bid's at 181 and change and the new bid is at 253, we're talking about the taxpayers paying another $70,000. So why pay that? And that's...
Yes, sir. We did an invitation for bid, and it's price-driven. We received 3 responses, 3 bids, and the bid provided by True Blue Services LLC, first of all, the solicitation required 5 references. It clearly states in the solicitation that it may be rejected if failure to comply.
It said may, it didn't say shall, but, so lay out first the decision as to why we rejected it on that.
Yes, sir. It says may cause the bid to be considered non-responsive. So we received 3 references on that particular issue. The other issue is that...
Wait a minute, I hear you saying may, but what I got here on a memo that says a minimum of 5 references are required. Let me see yours. I'm just
That's the
reading.
bit.
Yeah, I'm
The
reading
language.
right.
Shall provide.
Yeah, it's are.
Are in the bid.
No. Let me see it. Let me get my glasses back on. A minimum of 5 references
Are required, and that may lead to the rejection, and it did in this case. So as you're laying it out, explain to us why, since it's discretionary on your part, why their failure. I'm not defending them, I'm just asking.
And
Why their
I'm just
failure?
reading right.
That's correct, and that's one element. The other element is that there's, I couldn't determine a low bid because there's areas in here that the vendor left blank. So I cannot consciously tell you that even the price difference between the lowest bidder, because it would not be fair to the other vendors, because there's a lot of blanks in this bid, and you cannot have blanks.
And that's the question, what are the blanks?
Yes, sir, on page 36A of the solicitation, it's asking for on-site maintenance care and service program. So that, there was no fill-in. On-site maintenance care on a waterproofing drainage system for George Allen as well was left blank.
Yeah. And you did generate this. I just put it off the computer, so you did
Yeah,
generate this.
it was all, the attachments were sent to you.
I'm just trying to get on the record for you what the thought was. So, I don't ask you, would it be your opinion then with all those blanks that if they were filled in, these bids would be comparable?
Well, correct. All invitation for bids, vendors are required to fill in every single element that's listed within the document.
Okay.
And then on page 44, the whole section was completely
Blank.
left blank.
Right.
And what is 44?
That is the area that the county is seeking statistical gathering purposes only to provide information on your company's business as far as, let's see, please indicate whether the principal place of business is or headquartered physically located within Dallas County. So those are critical information that we seek within our solicitations, and the whole section, page 44, was left blank. Lastly, all addendums are required to be signed and acknowledged and submitted with your bid. We did not receive any signed, acknowledged addendums from the vendor.
Now, you said sign and acknowledgement, because I read something else, that you did an amendment, is that correct?
We did some addendums.
Oh, I mean addendum.
Yes, sir.
Did they sign?
They did not sign
Did
or
not sign
submit.
the
That's
addendum.
correct.
These addendums and acknowledgements are things like,
If there's any
these are
type
our
of-
rules, don't do bad, do good.
Well, there's a
Correct.
type of change or to the solicitation, we'll issue an addendum. And then the vendors are required to sign acknowledging that they adhere to the addendum and submit it with their response.
Okay. Well, let me ask this question, because I want the taxpayers to get their best deal. Irrigation company, I'm assuming that probably, and we got a deal where I don't think we based it on the permissive. There were many problems with this bid. But when there are blanks in bids, or people forget to sign addendums, or forget to fill out a sheet that indicates their address and their employer ID number, do we help them with that?
No, not on invitation for bids. No, sir.
So, well, I'm less concerned about, obviously, I'm less concerned about punishing a bidder than I am with punishing our taxpayers. If I've got like a bid where that's $50,000 or $70,000 lower, and someone failed to acknowledge 3 documents or fill in some blanks, but I could save the taxpayer $70,000, that would be troubling. So is that the
No,
case
sir.
here? or
In
something?
this case, I could not determine low bid because there's many areas that were left blank.
You don't have those, we don't have those options, Judge. I think you checked with the civil DA, I don't think we have those options. And again, I should have showed you this is what they generated to us. I don't think we have those kind of options.
And then again, how did you realize it was a low bid, less than $70,000? If there were so many blanks, I can give you the best rebate if I don't tell you the price of
the blanks are
anything.
very troubling, but for instance, I guess what I'm asking is, if we have a situation, let's say all the blanks were filled in, and they were two references short and forgot to sign 2 acknowledgement pages.
Case we would bring that forward to court. If we were shy a reference or 2, and we would bring that to court for your consideration, but in accordance with our solicitation,
And most of these IVPs, they get it right.
most of the time, yes, sir.
Everybody, the winners and non-winners, all
Let's
get
just say
it right.
the other 2 complied with the
Fill it.
required 5 references.
Okay.
Probably the real price was the second bidder, not the
Yeah, but you're saying that the contract was incomplete, or the
That is
bid was
correct, ma'am.
incomplete.
Yes. The failure to fill in pricing on several items and failure to acknowledge the
How could you
addendums.
have a true price if you do not fill half of it? Forget about the recommendations.
And then failure to fill out the
So it's
business
not-
information on page 44. The entire page is blank.
Easy to understand.
Okay.
Let's put it-
Can the rule, Bela, please, unless somebody has any further questions on this, and just to reiterate, so when we have an imperfect bid, the process is, if it's imperfect but close and it looks like it might be a good deal for the taxpayers, that's brought forth for the consideration of the court. In this instance, because of all of the, I'm just paraphrasing this for you, because of all the blanks, and because there was no way to tell what the final price would be, you went to the second bidder and recommended that bid, and that's where we are.
Right. And failure
it's
to
correct.
acknowledge the addendums and failure to fill out the company background information.
But if the only problems were the lack of reference and the failure to fill out the addendums, but everything else was in there, you'd bring that forward for the court's consideration, and the taxpayers could consider that $70,000 savings, right?
No, because again, the addendums, the document clearly states the vendors are required to sign and acknowledge the addendums, because that lets them know that they understand any type of change within the solicitation if I don't have that acknowledgement, I don't know that they understand any type of solicitation change. So those addendums are required to be submitted. A small erroneous error, I can bring that to court for consideration, but these are high blatant errors.
Fatal failures.
And I want to support your work in purchasing. At the same time, I don't want to have a situation where the taxpayers pay an extra $50,000 or $70,000 because someone, negligently grants you, failed to fill out a sheet to identify their tax ID number and where their company's headquarters are located, or sign a sheet agreeing to follow our rules without someone saying, did you forget this, will you sign this? And until someone says, I'm not going to give you my tax ID number or agree to follow your rules, then they're not compliant. But my concern, and what I'm hearing, is I don't want us to lose hundreds of thousands of taxpayers' dollars because people get 99% of the way there and make a mistake on a document. That's not happening.
I believe there's a clause in there that the county is authorized to approve erroneous or minor ambiguities, but in this case, it's not. Okay. It's not that case.
Right, because of all the blanks.
Correct.
Okay.
And blank, and the addendums and the failure to fill out the form.
We can do hypotheticals all day, but,
But in this situation, but regardless of the addendum that was identifying where their company's located, the blanks left you unable to determine what their bid
pricing.
was.
What the
Correct.
real
Okay.
price cost is.
Okay, so any other questions on this? Hearing none, will the mayor please read the rules of decorum for our public speaker?
All Commissioners Court attendees are hereby advised that this meeting is conducted in accordance with the provisions of Dallas County Code, Section 74-71. Visitors and registered speakers are preserved order and decorum at all times. Personal, profane, or slanderous remarks are not appropriate, will not be allowed at any time during this public meeting. Any and all applause will be kept brief in observance of time constraints. Disrupted visitors and/or registered speakers may be removed and are subject to penalties provided in State of Texas Penal Code Sections 38.13, 42.01, and 42.05. Registered individual speakers are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes, and the maximum discussion on any one topic is limited to 30 minutes.
All right, our speaker is Mr. Robert Olivas. Mr. Olivas, will you please come forward?
Good morning. My name is Robert Olivas. I'm with True Blue, and I just wanted to go over a couple of things with you.
give us your address for the record, please.
Sure, it's 138 County Road, 4876 in Newark, Texas, and it's on the document. I don't know what page, but it's there. I received a call yesterday. We put the bid in for this item number 40. I received a call from Mr. Cooper yesterday about 1 o'clock saying that there were two problems. I was notified of two problems with our bid. The first one being that the bid amounts for the maintenance for the 3 years, one is a full 1 year warranty price, which we provided that. It's in the bid. The other two, the year 2 and year 3, are options. We just chose not to choose them or to bid them because we're not a maintenance company, we're an install company. And I explained that to Mr. Cooper. The other was that we only
Stop for 1
provided...
second, sir. Would you agree with that, Dan?
Yes, sir, there are options.
Go ahead.
So we chose not to bid them. On page 41B, we have our pricing for the year warranty on that contract. The other issue was that we only provided 3 references rather than 5. That was completely my mistake. I have the 5. It was we laid out all the paperwork in it already. I put the wrong sheet in the bid packet. It was a simple mistake, and it was my mistake. But I do have the 5, and I have them here. When Mr. Cooper called me yesterday at about 1 o'clock, he said their protocol is to notify us 5 days prior to the court so that we have ample time to prepare ourselves for it. That didn't happen. He said it was a mistake that he made, and that's why he was calling me directly.
Hey, can you stop for 1 second? But Dan, assuming that I understand you've told me that was already a mistake. Let's assume we had notified him on time. Is there any difference in any of this?
Bid process.
Okay.
And as far as those options, the areas that were blank specifically states on-site maintenance, care, and service program during warranty period for waterproofing drainage system at the George Allen Senior Courts Building, and it provides for a cost per month. It says years 2 through 3 if requested, but it still has a required fill-in. It just doesn't say clearly, it says option. There's no wording that says option. It requires fill-in. That's on the bottom of page 36A.
Are you on page 30?
6A,
36A.
the very bottom one.
Right, no, I got it. Just want to make sure. Give it to you.
Okay. Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to keep up by stopping. It's not counting against your time. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so then Mr. Cooper said that he made a mistake, and that his boss, Mr. Garza, told him to go ahead and send me the letter. Well, I received the letter yesterday at 1:34 by email. It's dated the 10th, but I didn't get it till yesterday. And I understand it was a simple mistake, just like I made the mistake of not putting the right sheet in there. And do I think it was intentional? I don't. It was just a mistake. Do I think that Mr. Cooper should be disqualified from doing his job because he made a mistake? Of course not. That's all it was a simple mistake. If I'd have been notified, hey, we need this information, I would have provided anything that they needed. And those two optional years, 2 and 3, we didn't price because there was no charge for them. We weren't bidding them.
We would have said no charge on it if it was no charge. But to leave it blank, we don't know that there was not a charge.
Okay. Okay, so let me, and I'm trying to, the time is getting kind of wacky here, but I'm trying to keep it. So,
Stopping it each time.
so let me make sure I got this right. What he's saying is when he left it blank, it was a no charge, and what you're saying is, well, I didn't know that because
It was not
That
said.
was nothing.
nothing,
Correct.
but then again, nothing could mean,
I
it
mean, I charge you later.
could mean I charge you later, but it could,
It could be an oversight.
could be an oversight, and it could be, if I'm not going to charge you, I'll leave it blank.
I can't create a bid tab without having
Our bid,
Exactly, cannot
Okay,
read minds
okay.
of business.
our bid has the total amount, the 181,000 plus change. It has that. And as many contracts as I've done with my company in the last 12 years, that has always been the base. You've never been able to change it. Oh, well, I'm going to charge you this because I left this blank. It doesn't happen. It's taken for the bid amount that's in that space that's designated for it. And that's the bid that we put in on it.
But stop him again. Mr. Oliver, do you understand what Mr. Garza is saying and calculating, though? Do you understand, based on what it is showing us, he's got a different calculation based on the others filling in, and you leaving it blank?
Right, because we didn't, and I understand that discrepancy there, that he could misconstrue that as an additional charge.
Right.
But we left it blank intentionally because we weren't bidding those years because they showed to be optional. And after talking to Mr. Cooper, he said that I would have the opportunity that I could speak, but that normally no one does because the the Commissioners Court normally follows their recommendation on who they submit to y'all. So
And that's
he
when I
went
reached
ahead.
out to the court. I reached out to y'all to let you know that this was coming forward, to allow you to speak on your behalf. Correct. But the other thing, sir, again, as I mentioned, the solicitation clearly states all addendums are required to be signed and acknowledged and submitted with your bid. We did not receive that as well. Failure to fill out page 44 as well was totally blank. All other vendors, the 2 other bidders, complied with those requirements within the solicitation. Making any exception, it compromises the solicitation process.
Okay, I want to let you finish I've got a couple of questions for you, but, and one of them is going to be that, go ahead and finish what you're saying, but I want to know about those, why you didn't sign those addendums. But you finish what you're saying, and I'll ask you about that.
Okay, when Mr. Cooper told me that I would have the opportunity, he pretty much tried to talk me out of coming to talk, that normally companies don't come. And I told him, no, I will be here. And he says, okay, well, I'm going to have to notify his supervisor, Mr. Garza. This was at 1 o'clock. Well, I received a call back from Mr. Cooper about 5 o'clock after he sent me the letter dated the 10th yesterday at 1:34 p.m. That's when I received it. And I can pretty much guarantee whatever y'all got is after that time. Because at that point, it appeared to me that they were scrambling to get all that stuff together for this morning.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I'm just asking, I made a mistake. I didn't put the right sheet in there. I didn't put an amount in there because we weren't bidding that. The price that we bid was the actual price. And the $70,000 difference that's a lot of money to teach somebody a lesson.
Let me ask you before the question, you heard Mr. Garza saying, I think you've addressed, perhaps not to everyone's satisfaction, but we all understand what happened on the bid references and the blanks. But now we have these addendum sheets that weren't signed and page 44, which was left blank. Can you explain that to us?
My son-in-law works for me, and he prepares the bids, and I don't have an answer for you. That he apparently didn't fill it out, or he didn't sign off on it.
But that's the basis of why you're here, Mr.
I wasn't aware of that issue there. I was only notified of two of the not having the pricing on the optional years and of the references. That's all I was told about yesterday. So that's all I prepared for. I wasn't made aware of the other issue.
Okay. So, any other questions? Hearing none. Thank you, sir, for...
Thank you for listening to me.
Let me ask you a question of you, Mr. Garza. Given all this, and given that there's a $70,000 difference between this bid and the currently second bid, is there anything that can be done so the taxpayers aren't out that $70,000?
Not an invitation for bid, sir.
Okay. So if we were to pull this for 2 weeks for the bidders and you to work on it, you couldn't do that under the law of invitation for bid, because he now, I'm trying to get into that, he now knows what his competitors are bidding.
That's correct. Yes, all the pricing's out.
And there's laws that control that.
Correct. And then bids are not to be altered anyway after bid opening.
When were they opened?
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, about, let's see.
I think it just reflects September 1st at 2 p.m.
Okay.
There might have been an addendum to extend that date, but I'm not sure.
September 15th. We were open package on it, September 15th, according to this.
To the extent allowed by law, going forward, I'd like for our purchasing department to, before bids are opened, assist vendors that forget to sign a piece of paper or forget to turn in a reference.
Not the way it works.
Well, the loser in this is really not him. It's
I cannot alter any bid, sir.
Come on.
Can you listen to Mr. Garza, Judge? Mr. Garza, can you repeat that? You cannot?
We cannot alter bids after bid openings. It's
after they're open.
Yeah, but I can't.
But he won't know it until
How does he know until you open it?
until he opens it, Judge.
If September 1st at 2 p.m. was the bid opening, so the vendors come in and we open them and read everybody's pricing out accordingly, so everybody knows.
So you had no way of knowing that he
No,
hadn't
sir.
filled out some
That's
forms
correct.
until you
Only-
looked at
only
his
to the-
pricing.
And not even at that point, because we read the pricing only, and at that time, after we create the bid tab, and then we look through the documents to see if they're compliant.
Okay. Is there a way then, in the future, that we could look at the compliance aspects like references and signing addendums and documents before we look at pricing, so the taxpayers should get the benefit of free bids?
That can be
as opposed
adjusted.
to two
Judge,
bids?
Mr. Roden, you hear the judge saying,
Under the bid process, it's different than an RFP or other type of processes, and Mr. Garza is correct, once the bids are open, you cannot change the bids. The other issue is what is included to ensure that everyone understands are all of the instructions and directions that go out with the bid, which do set forth all of the things Mr. Garza pointed out, which is the importance of completing it correctly and making sure you fill everything out and doing those kind of things.
And that would be buttressed by the fact that of all the invitations for bid, rather, that we've had this year, how many non-compliance have we had?
Several. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I mean, like, out of 100,
gosh.
how many out of 100 would be non-compliant?
I would say around 5.
Okay. So 95% are compliant.
Yes, sir.
It's
Low end.
business, Judge.
But Judge, I mean, yeah, they disqualify people from being late, 2 seconds late.
And we can beef up, when we have the pre-bid conferences, we can beef up our communication with the bidders and let them know.
Yeah, you understand, I'm not critical of you, I'm not critical of you, I just, and looking at this, and what I'm seeing is, well, our taxpayers are going to pay a little bit more for an irrigation system than they would have if Mr. Olivas' son-in-law had filled out the paperwork perfectly. And that's frustrating to me, because money's finite, and I hate to spend more of the taxpayers' money than I have to.
Correct. I understand.
In this case, you really don't know what's the lowest bid, because the bid was not complete.
Well, I think we kind of do now, unfortunately.
Well,
Yeah,
really-
we do, it's him.
And the other information that was
You know, I
not
mean, you
provided.
will have to review additional information, Judge, and I don't know, we cannot do that. And if you look, actually, the administration office has an item here today, you know, in our agenda, which is the, Chapter 94, Purchasing and Contract Management. If you go through that, you can pretty much find out, it's in today's agenda. And, sadly, if it was only one, but there were several faults, Mr. Olivas, and I'm sorry, but there was not one. It was not only the reference, it was several parts of the bid who had mistakes, and I understand things like that happen. And, if it was only one, I probably, like you say, we would make a decision. But in this case, there were several big flaws. And I am sorry, but if I start doing this for one, I will have to do it for everybody, and I will be second-guessing the purchasing department. The other part is that, we've been discussing this for quite some time, and one of the things that the azimuth study, and we just got that memo this week from Mr. Roden about Mr. Martin talking to some of the people in the azimuth study, that we all know what it refers to purchasing and how close this court, they felt was to the purchasing bidding. And if I remember correctly, that memo that just came out this last week, Mr. Heichel, I'm sorry, Mr. Martin is not here. Would you talk to them, and their response was that we should not get that involved during this process, correct?
The gentleman we hired back in 2007 to be the Mr. Martin, I called him and spoke to him after the last meeting. It was his recommendation, consistent with the study that he did, the ASPA study, that you pull out from that, we had this 3-stage where you authorize the RFP, then you review who the responders are, and then you move forward. They recommend you get out the second stage.
And we're not in there. In this instance, where we are is at the end of a bid process, someone other than the low bidder is going to get the bid, and so we're discussing that, but no one's been involved. I'm not aware of if any of the commissioners have been involved in any way in this IFP for a sprinkler system. Let me ask this question, Mr. Garza, going forward. Can you look and see if there is a software package? When I fill out anything online, and it's invariable, I bet it's happened to everybody in this audience, you push submit and it goes back a few pages and it says, you forgot to answer question number thus and such. Can we do that with our IFBs, so that the taxpayers get the benefit of 3 or 4 or however many attempt to do it, solid bids, and we don't have situations like this where after a bid is opened, we've got a bunch of blanks and we've got explanations, and it looks like we're going to pay a little bit more. Is there a way to do that so this doesn't happen anymore?
We engage with BidNet to advertise our solicitations. They just went through a whole system upgrade, so we weren't ready to engage with them yet. But they just completed it, so we're pending all staff training. But they do offer electronic responses for all solicitations and requests for quotes. But we have to develop policies and procedures and work with IT to make sure the integrity and the leak of information, and no information is be able to be accessed or viewed until the bid opening.
Okay.
So we have to do all these testing before we can implement.
And we're in the process of doing that.
Yes, sir, it does offer that.
So that in the future, if someone is filling out a bid and they leave off a reference or forget to sign an addendum or something, a red box would come up and it would say, you know, you failed to fill this box.
I would have to see if it has those features, but I don't, technology is vast, so I don't see why not.
Great. And how long do you think it'd be before we would
It
have
would probably take months because this is technology. And
10 months?
No, months. I don't think 10 months, but I have to work with IT to do test environments.
Okay.
But then at this particular point, the same information was available to all of the bidders
ma'am.
for this particular item.
That's correct.
And all of the other bidders had complete bids
Yes.
submitted.
They were compliant, yes, ma'am.
And if we can get that last thing you talked about, then this won't be a problem for the bidders, and the taxpayers will get the benefit of everybody's bid. So that's a great thing. All right. Any further comments? Somebody's called the question. Question's been called. All those in favor means a vote on Court Order 40 as unamended. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. This takes us to, thank you, Mr. Olivas.
Please.
All right. Unless there's anything further, this will take us to our...
Let me just say, and I've had this concern, I've pushed it up, I don't know if I pushed it to Judge Roden, did push it to Budget Director. You know, and I know, Judge, you know, probably why you do this, but we continue to see these, I guess we call them charter schools. I still haven't figured out why they're filing with us. I don't know if I couldn't get. Well,
just a legal question?
Well, it's legal. It's under information, but it's I see another.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, let me say that for the record. There is a filing of a charter school under the information. Commissioner Price asking a question about that. Go ahead, sir.
A certain academy. And we do this all the time, kind of routinely, but, and I know we don't get into, what they do, how they, and some of us have a different kind of position with regards to, I tell people all the time, the difference between, charter schools is that they select who they want to be on their board, they select who they want to be in attendance, while public school has to take regardless, and we have to elect our people. But, and whether it's a $15 million facility piece or a $30 million facility piece, I'm still having some discomfort in terms of just why is it always filed? Why are we having to file it? And it's just a filing.
Which of the...
I'm on number 7 on the information. I'm on number 7 on the information.
Yeah, those are actually things that are, because of the tax code and certain charitable organizations or certain types of things, under the tax code, in order to do certain financing, they have to have the highest elected official within the jurisdiction sign off on the approval of that. And as you will see in there, they hold public hearings. And then once those public hearings are held, then the highest elected official signs off on that.
Yeah, well.
And that's really why why it is required to come through here.
Yeah, okay.
And why it's provided as informational as opposed to any action being taken. The Commissioner's Court's not taking any action.
I got all of that. I read that. I read their publication. They put it in a daily newspaper. I'd love to see how many people attend a public hearing, but then they go and they issue debt, and again, it's just personal. The whole siphoning of charter schools is off the public kill, and that's a whole nother thing. But every time I look up, we've got one coming through here, and it'd be interesting to see how many of them we've done. Because in the course of a year, we you know, there's millions and millions of dollars, and at the end of the day, you know, they're siphoning off of public schools. But anyway.
And number 3 is the same situation where an
That's correct.
entity is just going for the signature of the highest elected.
Right, and it's 147 of the tax code, and we can do further briefing on it.
Yeah.
But it is something that our department has reviewed to make sure it's in compliance.
Yeah, okay. I just keep siphoning off 15 million, 20, 30 million. Real money. Okay.
All right, and we've already read our rules of decorum for our public speakers, so I'm going to call them in the order that they signed up. Mr. Richard Sheridan.
Morning, Richard Sheridan, 3817 Gannett Lane, Dallas, Texas. I'd like to make a quick comment about the presidential election. JFK wasn't perfect. Donald Trump isn't perfect. I believe he gave a good acceptance speech calling for unity, and I believe we need to pray for our next president. That's for sure. Here to speak about JFK and the Dallas Citizens Council. Soon we will again honor former President John Fitzgerald Kennedy, certainly one of the greatest presidents in our nation's history. Hundreds of thousands of people from all over the world and nations still come to Dealey Plaza trying to find the answers to the why, how, and who questions. My speech today hopefully will partially answer the why and who questions. The following is a portion of the speech that President Kennedy gave on April 27th, 1961, before the American Newspaper Association. Quote, "The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and secret proceedings. We have decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweigh the dangers which are cited to justify it. There is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence. It is a system which has conscripted vast and covert means for expanding its sphere of influence. A system which has conscripted vast and material resources into a building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. 2.5 years after JFK spoke these very revealing words, he was assassinated by the same secret society he was exposing. It wasn't a lone gunman. JFK's assassination was both a national and local conspiracy. What part in his assassination did the Dallas Citizens Council play? The Dallas Citizens Council was founded in 1937 by former mayor and KKK member R.L. Thornton. He is glorified today with his name on a major highway in Dallas. And there was a local conspiracy, certainly. H.L. Thornton was heard saying he needs to go. He needs to go. He started to do good things for America. And again, he wasn't perfect. So on today's Dallas Citizens Council's website, they state that its members and chief executives and top business leaders from the area's largest companies committed to leading, I say misleading, serving, I say disserving, in the moments that matter the most for the people of Dallas. In conclusion, the Dallas Citizens Council is one of today's secret societies that JFK spoke about in 1961, which is a ruthless conspiracy group that relies on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence. We can't do anything about them, but we certainly can address those that support them.
You're out of time, but I want to caution you, the ruthless conspiracy group, it violates our rules of decorum when you're defining that to a small group of people that are definable like this Citizens Council group. All right, but you're out of time, so thank you for your comments. All right, Mr. Robert Ciccarelli.
Thank you very much. I just came from the City Council. I gave my report about the homeless. First, I want to talk about the West End. It's out of control. I was there last night. 100 teenagers were down there between 7 and 12. No cops. They have 10 cops right now. But between that time, it's been going on for months. I told the city council about it, I told the sergeant at the West End, please do something, get cops here right away. It's out of control, it's been out of control, it's all by teenager controls the West End, by the Dart Rail Station. Thank you. I'm concerned about the homeless. I've only seen 3 city council members attend any of the meetings that I've been to. I've been to 8 of them. 1 attended 1 meeting, 1 attended, check this out, for 1 hour, and the other one attended 3 or 4 meetings. I gave congratulations to this city council member. The mayor attended none, except for the last 20 minutes of the last meeting. So I'm very concerned about the homeless situation. They say they're concerned, but they don't show it coming out to meetings, and I just want to let you know that it's going to be uphill. Whatever's going to happen, the city council to decide anything positive is going to happen out of this. I'm going to get to the crux of the problem. It's permanent supportive housing and shelters. Permanent supportive housing is years and years down the road. The homeless can't wait. The 250 homeless that came to the city council meeting were not looking for permanent supportive housing. They were looking at what Ron Stretcher is talking about as a crisis. The Dawson State Jail, the ISD buildings need to be looked at immediately. The permanent supportive housing is going to be a failure because these people are going to still be on the streets. And about the task force. The task force doesn't have any homeless people on it. They're going to give a bogus report. Why I say this is because they're not going to tell what the homeless life of a homeless person is. Very desperation. Every day is a struggle, and you don't know what's going to happen as far as discrimination. This information will not be told to the city council because, like I said, none of the task force members are homeless and what it feels like to be homeless. I'm going to give you an example of our permanent supportive housing. It's the cottages. Look at the cottages. 13 months, and it still looks like a tornado down there. 5 different times they had dates to be open, and it didn't, and they canceled it. Do you know how it feels like you expect to go somewhere, and 5 different times you're turned down? It's very, very discouraging. It's very, very bleak right now, and something's got to have to gel, but between the city council and the task force, nothing's going to happen. Permanent supportive housing got to be on the back burner right now. You got to go what Ron Stretcher says. Get these buildings open immediately, get them off the streets, and that way they can get the permanent supportive housing like I did. It took me 14 months to get permanent supportive housing. I'm still asking to get the county here. Marion Jones was retired. Please get her here or someone to replace her because that program, Salvation Army, saved my life. And one last thing before I go. Vouchers, they turned it down, and...
Mr. Seaver, I'm sorry, but you're out of time, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir. And our last speaker today is Ms. Pamela Sampson. Ms. Pamela Sampson, Ms. Pamela Sampson. And that concludes our public speakers. We're going to adjourn in a moment for our closed session to consider matters under Chapter 551 of the Government Code. Any action needed from the closed session will take place in the subsequent open session of court. Sorry.
I have the feeling you have more.
No, action
There would have
taken.
been competitive areas.
Oh, no, that was great. That was fine.
Okay. And you know the other